post-election pod, we've got some thoughts. Are we using our real names? Should we have alter egos?
Yeah, let's do alter egos for
What's
this
yours?
sensitive material. I'm the black sheep.
Naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let's call me the brown bear then.
We got the black sheep and the brown bear with the election post-mortem analysis.
Post-mortem analysis, data-centric to avoid controversy, and then opinion.
That's right.
Probably uninformed opinions, but opinions after the data.
Correct. And also some hunches along the way.
Perhaps. Some nuggets.
Where should we start, man?
I think we should start with a brief overview of the data set
Okay.
and kind of an idea of what it suggests.
Okay. So, should I just kind of jump in here?
Go.
So basically, the motivation for digging into this stuff was essentially the results of the election didn't quite smell right to me. It wasn't quite sitting right with me. And what specifically was not sitting right with me was learning that Biden had received more votes than any presidential candidate in U.S. history. The fact that he had received that many votes in a year where his party, the Democrats, were on net losing congressional seats, basically indicated that not only had he had a massive performance, but he'd had a massive performance relative to his party, which just didn't seem right to me because of how poor of a campaign he had run, because he hadn't given any speeches that anyone thought anything of. Almost every time he spoke live on camera, some kind of ridiculous gaffe was involved, with the "You Ain't Black" to Charlemagne the God, or playing Despacito on his cell phone, or calling the guy fat, or children rubbing his leg hair story, or fighting corn pop, or almost every time the dude opened his mouth, it was an absolute hazard. Just gaffe after gaffe. And this guy...
Numbers were a big problem.
What's that?
Numbers were always a big problem. It was
500...
200,000
million people have died from the coronavirus.
It was the correct number was never uttered first.
That's true, man.
The correct number may have been uttered eventually.
Yeah, maybe he had an earpiece and they eventually got it through to him.
Initially, though, struggle.
So, long-winded way of saying, we had some skepticism about Biden being the most voted for candidate in a presidential election in American history, and doing so while his party struggled nationally. This suggests he was more popular than the average Democrat, which just, it wasn't looking right. So I floated this idea out there on social media and had a few suggestions from people who were big excited Biden people after the election. The most common of which was that you probably had a lot of people who were down the ticket voting Republican, but for president only had switched over to Joe sheerly out of dislike for Trump's personal antics, and that could explain, one, the fact that you don't need a blue wave to explain that, and let's see, yeah, that could explain Biden's relative overperformance, because it would essentially suggest that he's taking some Republicans from Trump just because they hate Trump. So if that was the case, what we were expecting to see is that Trump should underperform Republican Senate candidates. So we ran an analysis to see if that was the case, and it turned out that Trump overperformed Senate Republican candidates. So that's not where Biden's overperformance was coming from relative to Senate Democrats. So the next thing we wanted to explore was, is he taking votes from independents who voted either for an independent or a third party candidate in the Senate and then voted Biden in the general? So we wanted to figure out if that's where he's pulling from, or whether he's pulling from ballots that don't have anybody filled out for the Senate slots, because we knew there was 1.2 million of both of those. There was 1.2 million independents who had switched over to a main party candidate for the presidential election, and then there were 1.2 million ballots that had been cast for president with no bubbled in answer for Senate. And essentially what we did was this regression analysis looking at who overperformed and who underperformed in different states. Did those states have a corresponding underperformance of a different candidate that could explain their overperformance, or was this a state where there were additional votes needed to get to the total presidential vote? And what that correlation revealed was that Biden's overperformance, Biden and Trump both overperformed. Biden overperformed more. Biden's overperformance tended to be correlated with states that had more empty ballots at Senate. Trump's overperformance tended to be correlated with states that had more votes up for grab from other candidates. So all of this is a long-winded way of saying what appears to be the difference in the election is not Republicans switching over, and it doesn't even look like there's a very strong case for independents switching over. What appears to be what got Biden over the edge is ballots that were blank for senator.
Boom. Now, what could we think about as far as a devil's advocate? Because clearly the implication here is not good. Not good that the difference in such a close election would be ballots that individuals cast for just president. What are some devil's advocate points for this? And I think one might be that let's list what states are on this list of 34 with the Senate elections.
Yeah, let's see if I can pull this guy up. Is it on your Okay, so we just want like a handful of...
Just list them all, just real quick.
So all Senate states?
Yeah. And specifically, I kind of want to know, like, I know Arizona was on there.
Yep.
Wisconsin was on there, right?
No.
Oh, Wisconsin was not.
Michigan was on there.
Michigan was on there. Okay. Pennsylvania was not, right?
Pennsylvania is not. No.
Pennsylvania is not.
But
Georgia is.
Georgia
though.
is.
They're in a runoff, though.
Yeah, that's a close one. I think North Carolina was as well. They still haven't called that.
Okay.
North Carolina is on there.
North Carolina.
So,
okay. So there are several key states on here. So
Yeah.
that was one thing. Like, if it was not several key states, what would be the question? Okay. So then what could you think of as far as like what could plausibly explain this?
So, putting on the nothing to see here, folks, kind of hat for a moment. What I think you could say is, we know that more people voted in this election. Something like 13 to 15% more people voted in this election than 2016. Massive margin. So when you have this,
But not, I don't think as big as some people expected. I thought
really?
I was, yeah, I mean, I don't have any hard numbers, so I should just shut up, but
okay.
I thought this was not quite the turnout that some people projected.
Oh fuck. That's news to me, because I
mean,
thought it looked
obviously,
like an enormous turnout.
Obviously it was.
Yeah.
Biggest turnout in history.
Yeah,
But somewhat predictable,
potentially.
given the ease of voting.
Potentially. Given that, here's what was different this time. Two things were different. Most notably, mail-in ballot that was not absentee ballots. So they were mailing ballots out regardless of whether people requested them. So they just had, in a lot of these states.
Careful, that's very loud.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Ballots that were just being mailed to everybody, and putting on the devil's advocate of the blue pilled kind of perspective on this.
How dare you?
I know, but the blue pill take on this is a lot of people maybe would have forgotten to register, would have been too busy to register, or would have been too busy to show up in person, and just a ballot showed up at their house, so they filled it out and they voted when they might not have otherwise. The second devil's advocate position is there was a big push by social media companies to have everybody get registered. If you logged into Instagram or any one of these apps, it would have said, check your voter registration here. A lot of people probably went through that, got registered, got ballots in the mail, voted that might not have otherwise voted. So what you have is a significant amount of entrance to the voting pool. And what could potentially happen is these entrants to the voting pool might be very low information voters. They might not have any interest in researching local referendums, state electors, even differences in the parties, and they might just be purely voting off of the names that they know without doing any research. Those names are Trump and Biden. If Trump has said something that turned him off, that ultra low information voter might fill out a ballot that's just Biden for president and nothing else.
Seems plausible, honestly.
Yeah. There's probably a non-zero number that did that.
Well, there's definitely that.
Yeah.
Right? There's
definitely that. Yeah.
There's definitely.
My suspicion is that most of those low information voters are probably going to go on party lines.
Maybe.
They might go. If you think about like the 19-year-old.
That's who I'm thinking about. I think they don't give a fuck about anything else.
You think about, you voted when you were 18, right? In the 2008 election. Did you just think about it like a homework assignment, right? Did you fill in answer number 1 and send it off?
I mean, no.
I've never talked to anybody who's done this. So
that's a good point. This hypothetical person is in my head, but it seems so plausible to me. But at the same time, I could be just fabricating that.
Yeah, I think, when you have a person who doesn't know what kind of stuff to vote for, they'll tend to ask somebody. They'll ask somebody who they think can guide them in this way. Maybe it's a parent or a friend. Somebody might refer them to one of these voter guides, like I know The Stranger puts out, here's what to vote on everything. So yeah, honestly, I would personally be surprised if there were that many. Now I'm coughing up the blue pill and I'm taking the red one. I'm a little skeptical that there are that many people submitting ballots with nothing but president filled out.
That also seems plausible.
Yeah.
But I do think that is a potential roadblock in this logical journey. You would want to try to figure that out somehow, ideally, if it's possible.
Yeah, the thing is, you can look at any statistical kind of thing that you want to look up. There's this. We can talk about some of the others. I've seen some really fantastic stuff go on in terms of other statistical analyses, where what it does is it gives you hints as to what to look for, right? This what I just showed you doesn't prove anything, but what it does is it hints, and it says, if we think there is something awry here, here's what we think it is. We think it's ballots that have Biden for president and nothing else.
And it disproves certain things as well, which is important.
Yes.
Equally important.
Yes.
If not, yeah.
It disproves that explanation. But if you were the person who was looking to find voter fraud, you still have to find the voter fraud.
Right.
You still have to find votes cast by dead people that shouldn't have been counted, or ballots that don't have the right watermark on them, or things that weren't stamped for the mail as they were supposed to have been, et cetera, right?
Etc. And it kind of gets us to the point where we were before we started recording, is that we know
Yeah.
that elections have been meddled with in the past.
Yes.
We know, let's just throw it out there, that there's some fuckery when it comes to rules and regulations like gerrymandering and all that.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's fuckery when it comes to certain districts doing certain weird things.
Yep.
And we suspect that there's ballot stuffing, and that there has been ballot stuffing on both sides forever, probably.
Yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical to go too symmetrical with that statement. The reason for that is, I think in terms of who is employed as ballot counters and election supervisors and all that
How
kind
dare
of stuff.
you? But it seems to be true.
I think Democrats have Republicans outnumbered in those roles, 25 to 1.
Largely.
The joke I was making yesterday, 2 days ago, was, who do you think, or let me back this up. Do you think that ballot counters lean politically to the left or to the right of elementary school teachers?
I mean, I would imagine it's similar, maybe to the left.
Yeah, so that is, I pick like the most left-leaning profession I could think of, right?
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah, so
maybe art teachers.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think of like who has activists, does the left have activists or does the right have activists?
The left certainly has activists. The right seems to have reactionists.
The right has very uncoordinated shit like the Proud Boys.
Yeah. Very uncoordinated.
If you think the Proud Boys are rigging an election, I got some land to sell you.
Yeah. Yeah, in Dubai, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I lost my train of thought a little bit.
We were talking about, I derailed you. You were saying we know that election fraud is something that has happened.
Oh, and you were saying it's asymmetrical, and that just the Democrats do it.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
And the other, and let me, before I get you back on track, the other piece of information I want to add to this is, in terms of, if you look at who is trying to shore up this process that we know is not perfect, Republicans are the ones who have long been advocates of voter ID laws. They have long been opponents of ballot harvesting. You're probably familiar with, yeah. Anybody can Google ballot harvesting that doesn't know what that is. Any of our million listeners.
Shout out.
We love you guys.
No one loves you, Noah, right now.
I know.
Oh, pardon me. Black bear. Black sheep.
Black sheep, you're brown bear.
Brown bear. Okay.
You said no one, right?
No one. Yeah.
Anyway, back on track. If Republicans want voter ID laws, Republicans want to end ballot harvesting. Republicans were opposed to automatic mail-in voting. Sending out millions of ballots to people who hadn't requested them. Republicans are the ones who are trying to tighten this thing up.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats vehemently oppose voter ID laws, think that ballot harvesting is an essential element of our democracy. We're all gung-ho for mail-in voting without sending out a zillion ballots that people hadn't requested. And I think that just kind of tells you, who wants this thing to be high and tight and who wants it to be fast and loose.
Yeah, I can't see a way around that. Is it true that there were 28,000 ballots received that went 100% for Biden in Pennsylvania? Was that true?
23.7 thousand was the number.
23.7 thousand. And 100% went for Biden?
100%. According to, I got this from Nate Silver of 538.com.
Oh, Lord.
So, it's
not a bastion of conservative thinking.
No, and he didn't report it as if this is some sketchy thing. He's excitedly reporting.
He's like, this is interesting. This is data.
No, not even like that. He's saying he's obviously he's polling for Biden. All his models predicted Biden was going to win, but he's excitedly reporting that the new election numbers that are coming out are moving closer to the results that he predicted.
Right.
And he sends out this tweet. Another batch of 23.7 thousand.
They kept saying that on CNN. I was watching all the coverages.
Yeah.
They kept saying these things, and then they joke, ha ha ha. No, I mean, just for everyone to know, this is totally normal and legitimate. They kept saying this.
Oh, okay, I didn't watch very much of it live.
I watched way too much of it.
Yeah.
Way too much of it, and they kept joking, and it was off-putting in the moment, and now post-mortem.
Off-putting CNN?
Okay, so listen, more what I mean is to the degree that it's like they're flirting with that line of telling people like, this is the side we're on, this is what we're doing. They almost like spill the beans sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's all true.
Yeah.
And which is odd.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine stuff where it's like, and it looks like Pennsylvania has turned blue. Exciting stuff, Anderson. We're moving on.
Yeah. No, but that's the subtle stuff. But
yeah.
there's times where they say we took the lead.
Oh, they do?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I forget which. I think his name's John something. But yeah, it's very thinly veiled.
Right.
Their biases.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I was just watching it and I was just thinking, like, if it's true that this mainstream media is part of some sort of deep state sort of network, let's call it, not like a orchestrated cabal, but like, it all falls into place, right? Like, it's not a conspiracy to believe in the military industrial complex anymore. Like, it's just, we know that there's money in that shit. Mm-hmm. And that people like money.
Sure.
And that they're going to pursue that if they can.
Yeah.
And so one way to do it is through that, and another way to do it is through elections. That's my rant.
All right.
Okay, where do we go from there?
Well, man,
So what's the purpose of this? Because I think, I lost track. I had a point of that rant.
I'll be honest, you lost me at the end there when the military-industrial complex came in.
Basically seeing God damn it. I lost myself.
I didn't want to stop you, though, in case you were going to retreat.
I lost myself.
Okay.
I lost myself in the moment. But something to the effect of, I was watching CNN, and I was thinking, like, what are they trying to program into us right now? And I thought pretty much the whole time they're trying to program into us that everything's normal, this is all fine, wait and watch, wait and see, and all of that. And I think it's just clear that the deep state and the Democrats wanted to take control so that they could progress along in their agenda, and they were able to accomplish that. And now we're celebrating, and it's just freaking me out, man. I'm listening to Orwell. I probably shouldn't be. I should probably be, listening to Ram Dass right now. But this is scary. Like these we've got these deep state monsters in control of us totally
Yeah.
now. And the only thing stopping them is some states' rights. And those are kind of hanging in the balance as well. And it's 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 not a good time politically, I think. And so we've got to like rise up and get beyond politics, but they're doing such a good job of politicizing everything and then also pitting us against each other. They're using race and gender mostly.
Right. The critical race theory is really, really effectively pitting Americans against each other.
And it's terrible. And
Yeah.
we're in big trouble if we can't figure that out.
It
and
has
we can't work together.
been like shockingly effective.
But what's interesting, back to the election results,
Huh?
who is voting more for Trump?
Right. Every minority group.
Every minority group.
Yeah.
Latinos, fucking specifically Cubans,
Yep.
fucking everybody.
Yeah. Blacks are more supporting him. He had some big names of the hip hop community come out for him.
Lil Wayne?
Lil Wayne, and some of them were careful about how they did it and didn't quite use the term "I endorse Donald Trump," but did essentially make some statements of approving of him, wanting to work with him, you know, not being in for Biden. And those names were, you know, it was Lil Wayne, but it was also Ice Cube, 50 Cent. I don't know his music really, but that Lil Pump guy spoke at a Trump rally.
Oh, I don't know him either.
He's like a Gen Z rapper. Who else do we have? Kanye, of course, wore the MAGA hat and visited him at the White House. So, I mean, these are big names, right?
Big names.
These are some of the biggest names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I think a lot of people see through this nonsense.
Yeah.
But they've considered it nonsense
Uh-huh.
until more recently, when there are like seemingly very obvious connections to the nonsense that are affecting people's livelihoods.
Right.
But even still, things are not really changing at the rate that they need to, if they are changing at all. Because people are still acting crazy about this stuff. You know?
Yeah, no doubt.
Especially, I mean, along the West Coast where we're at, it's kind of wild. You know, it goes without saying. Like, certain things go without saying that, like, I almost don't want to bring up because it sounds a little paranoid. Maybe it is paranoid.
Uh-huh.
But, like, it's totally fine to shit on white people.
Yep.
Totally fine. In every context, everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
polite company and everything.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
School, work, church. There's nowhere you can't do it.
There's no limit to where and
Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas morning. It's
whatever
all good.
you want.
Yeah.
In the bedroom.
A funeral.
It doesn't matter. You can do it. Now, most other races, you really can't get away with it most of the time.
Right.
Black people especially. That one seems especially.
They don't take it at all.
Well, I mean, it's not. I wasn't talking. I mean, that may be true, but I wasn't talking about it from that context. I was just talking about society in general.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Society in general does not put up with that shit. Like,
No.
racist towards Asian people, like, you know, some people still get down with that, I feel like, more.
Yeah, they have to be a little bit careful, but no one really would call you a racist if you did an Asian accent.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think... I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
But I just get the feeling in society that it's, you know, more faux pas with certain others. But in any case, the point being is that it's totally okay with white people.
Yep.
And That I don't give a fuck about that. First of all, I don't really even identify as white mostly, even though most people identify me that way. Fuck you. No, I'm kidding. I love you. But that doesn't matter. It's the concept of it, right? That like we should either, I feel like, embrace living in a totally free society where we can shit on people for whatever, as long as we're not, you know, literally shitting on them, or like doing anything to physically harm them in any way.
Yeah, we definitely shouldn't literally.
Right? You could not do that. That's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But verbally shit on them. I think that that's cool. Maybe we should do that. We can all agree to do that. Or we could agree to not do that. But then we should probably agree to not do it to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because, duh. Right?
Right, yeah. I mean, certainly it is not a recipe for a harmonious society, for a harmonious culture, for one group to be kind of gratuitously disrespected, and in a sense kind of encouraged to be derogatory of, and every other group it's 100% off limits. That's not a recipe for that society getting along well.
I don't think so.
It's not.
Yeah.
I don't think we're making this too much of a stretch to say that.
I think a lot of people would disagree with us.
I know, but they're fucking brainwashed.
How dare you?
I know. Can I share a quote with you?
Please do.
All right. So this quote is from an author who was, the pseudonym is Theodore Dalrymple. He's a British physician who basically was, his primary occupation was, he was a psychotherapist or psychiatrist essentially, like for prison populations. And he kind of did all these like psychological and sociological studies on the people that he treated while they were in there. Anyway, this is one of his quotes. He says, "Political correctness is communist propaganda writ small. In my study of communist societies, I came to the conclusion that the purpose of communist propaganda was not to persuade or convince, nor to inform, but to humiliate. And therefore, the less it corresponded to reality, the better.
Oh dear.
When people are forced to remain silent when they are being told the most obvious lies, or even worse, when they are forced to repeat the lies themselves, they lose once and for all their sense of probity. To assent to obvious lies is to cooperate with evil. And in some small way, to become evil oneself. One's standing to resist anything is thus eroded and even destroyed. A society of emasculated liars is easy to control. I think if you examine political correctness, it has the same effect and is intended to."
Yes, naturally.
So what it's saying there is there are these pressures to get you to assent to obvious lies. And you were just talking a second ago about critical race theory and, the idea that it's just, there is some kind of absurd stuff in there. Right? Some stuff like all white people are racist, all white people are privileged. It's categorically an advantage to be white, and it's a huge oppressive thing to be a person of color, and same thing, male versus female, and yada yada yada. When you are taught about this stuff, when you get your trainings, you hear stuff that you're not ready to sign off on. Would you agree with that?
I would, but I don't know how many people would.
A lot of people do. A lot of people, it's stuff that, they wouldn't say it unless somebody asked them to say it.
Like, what's an example of this?
just just something like you know, I recognize that my privilege comes from my race.
Damn.
You know, as opposed to, right, the hard work of my parents and grandparents to provide a good life for me.
Right.
Right. Saying, no, I recognize that the origin of my privilege is my white skin. When in most of our experience, at least most of my experiences, the white skin is kind of a liability. You know, it's
Now it is.
yeah.
Now.
And it's like, and in 2020, when you're asked to admit I'm privileged and it's because of my white skin, that I think that fits with what Dalrymple is saying there. That you are asked to repeat after me. You know, say this thing that you don't believe.
That condemns yourself.
Yeah, and what he says is, you know, you're being asked to cooperate with evil and in some small way to become evil yourself.
And that's facts. And
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, I've heard him lecture on the idea that, you know, we all have it in us to be the fucking Nazi prison camp guard.
Right.
Because that motherfucker was human. And
Yeah.
we're human.
Right.
And, like, when we do this thing where we create labels for things and then we simplify them down to the point where there's almost no substance to it anymore. Like, do people really even understand the things that led to Nazi Germany?
No.
Do people even
I
understand?
don't think so. A lot of them they don't.
Yeah. Do they understand, you know, how the French Revolution came to be?
Definitely not.
Do they understand, you know, what transpired in China or Russia?
Yeah. No.
They have no idea.
Yeah.
They have, at best, a cursory knowledge of it.
Right. People in our society have been taught to be on guard against, you know, certain aspects of fascism, right? Certain aspects of, like, our race is the great race, or, you know, I don't know what all, but
Yeah, there were just some things that resonated more, and now there are some things that are being forgotten. Like all of this classism stuff
yeah,
is really terrible. I mean, I think we should, as a polite and civilized society, and this is kind of what the English did, is, you know, we should create a society that caters to, you know, the whole society's health. And we shouldn't just be focused on, you know, ourselves. But through this thing called mutual self-interest, we can achieve a lot of good. You know?
sure, yeah,
But when we're distracted with this nonsense, then we're easily manipulated through fear.
right,
And then fear leads to these authoritarian entities coming to power. And sometimes they don't come to power through one, like, grandiose leader. You know, sometimes it happens another way. Like what's happening right now. You know, the Republicans, the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats are the same. They're, you know, pushing war. They're pushing regulation. They're expanding government, increasing spending.
So I'm glad you got there, because I think that ties back to where we started this conversation in the election. That I think if you take neoconservatives, the, you know, Bush, McCain, Cheney et al., Romney types, and you take neoliberals, the Clinton, Biden, Obama, you know, Pelosi, Schumer. If you kind of take the establishment Dems and the pre-Trump establishment Republicans, Um, it you good? It's kind of hard to come up with a whole lot of concrete ideological difference between them. They talk a little bit different. They're talking to different bases, but they're kind of the same thing.
They have like two differences:
What's that?
abortion and guns.
Which somehow, yeah, both of which somehow never have quite been able to make it to the to Washington. It's
I
always
wonder why. Yeah.
they talk about them in their campaigns, and then nothing about them ever happens
Yeah.
once they go off to Washington.
You can't even say war anymore.
No, you can't.
You can't say the drug war anymore.
No, you can't. I agree.
You might be able to say immigration, maybe, but mostly no, I think. Obama didn't do anything for immigration.
No, and again, who brought the conservative change on immigration?
Trump out of fucking establishment.
Trump from the upper deck with a steel chair.
Yeah.
Is who brought immigration in.
Yeah, he said something absurd and then he did it.
And it's Trump comes running in through the jumbotron. Nobody even knew he was in the building.
Unbelievable.
Trump with the immigration. John Cena entrance music. So I don't think that's though. To speak to your point a second ago, between the neocons and the neoliberals, is that really a big difference? I think not really. Yeah. What you have that's different now? What makes because when it was Obama versus Romney, this statement very much resonated with me still. Republicans and Democrats are two sides of the same coin. That's what I believed was going on. Now that we're talking not about Mitt Romney anymore, but about Trump, I no longer think that's the case. I do not think that Trump and Biden are two sides of the same coin.
There's an argument to be made that they're not, but
they're not.
It's sort of crazy, but I've been coming on board with it a little bit that, it's not just our guns, it's not just, First Amendment and vaccines and all that. It's also like China and the Middle East.
Yeah.
The Middle East right now?
Yeah.
I mean, incredible.
Peace deals you're talking about?
Peace deal.
Yeah.
Peace deals.
Peace deals, yeah.
Multiple peace deals.
Yeah.
Across multiple nations.
That, and you know what? He hasn't quite been able to do it, but it really seems like Trump has been trying his damnedest to pull some troops back from there.
I think he did, and I think they said, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
No. The fuck you talking about?
I think what has kind of transpired is they said, hey, look, I know on paper it says you're the commander-in-chief, but you don't actually get to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And if you think you do, then, well,
we've got a grassy knoll for you to visit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Why don't you come with us, Mr. President? We'll show you something.
And that, to me, is, now coming back to it, that to me is what makes this idea that there is fraud in this election much more plausible.
Yeah.
Because when it was, they kind of seemed like they're two sides of the same coin. It didn't really seem super clear to me that it made sense to rig an election. If you just give it to the one that's the more popular, but they're really the same thing, then that's going to cause the least strife in the society.
Win-win. Keep it rolling,
exactly.
baby.
Yeah. We have no reason to, between Obama and Romney, let's just see who the people want. It doesn't fucking matter.
Aren't gas prices excellent when one party controls the Congress and one party controls the executive branch?
I'll take your word for it. I haven't looked. Yeah. But that's what makes me think it is plausible that there is some malfeasance in the current election environment. It's two things. One is it's what we've been talking about. I think there really are powerful figures that are not under the public eye, deep state actors, if you will, who are against Trump and are able to kind of pull some strings that the average citizen is not aware of to make that happen. The second reason is I do think there are an army of people in this country, army loosely termed, who view Trump as evil or an existential threat or literally Hitler or something to that effect. You know, believe he's fascist or something along these lines. These are common beliefs. And if you believe that one candidate is Hitler, are you telling me you won't fake a ballot in order to keep...
Of course you will.
Exactly. So I think they would have just absolutely no shortage of volunteers to do whatever they need them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've been taking a while to get to this point, but if anybody tells you there's no way this election can be rigged, I think BS.
It doesn't pass the sniff test in anything. I studied political science.
Yeah.
In anything related to national or foreign policy, that there would be no meddling in the election.
Right.
There's going to be meddling. It's just a matter of to what degree.
Let me ask you this. If there was a rigged election, how much more blatant could it look than this?
I don't think at all. Because here's what I look at is I look at an election where it's incredibly close, despite the fact that there was very little popular sentiment that it would be.
Yeah.
That in the places where it was the most close, there was the most amount of seemingly odd circumstances popping up.
Yeah.
And the fact that those places took the longest to finally get all of their votes counted.
Right.
Just right there is very, very suspect.
Yeah, I mean, we had 1 day, right? We have election day, and states got between 80 and 95% of their votes counted. I mean, we don't have a list in front of us how far everybody got, but every state got the majority except probably Alaska. Every state got the vast majority of their votes counted that day. And based on those first day counts, Trump was very much in a position to win the election.
Very much so. And some of the places were... Here's the thing, is that, like, I heard somebody say, how could you rig the election across, multiple states where they have independent election boards and all of that? And the answer is they don't have to. Most of the states take care of themselves.
Correct.
Most of the states, it's not in question what happens.
Right.
Inconsequential.
There is an art to rigging an election. That if you're going to rig an election, you want to do so with as few fake ballots as possible.
Of course, as little interference as possible.
Where can you put the least pressure on the scale to cause stuff to flip?
Yep.
So
look, there's an influx of people in this particular county in Arizona. We'll just dump some ballots in there. That'll take care of that. Boom.
Just go to the closest states in the country, put your finger on the scale, put your finger on the scale, put your finger on the scale.
Just a little bit in some
Just
places.
A little bit, yeah.
But they had to put it on a lot in some places.
They had to put on, again, there were so many fucking ballots flying around in the mail this year. Like in these states where it's like everybody gets a ballot regardless of whether they request one. There were so many ballots that just got zoomed out there in the mail. How many people didn't get it and had to re-request it, right? It's like how many of those ballots just got like picked up by somebody? How much of it never made it to their destination? We had so many ballots made with no real good proof that they actually made it to the person they were intended for. You know, how many ballots are out there that potentially could have been modified? It's a lot. And you know what I was saying about the first day, it's like, you know, we get 90% counted on the first day. Trump has a huge margin, but we get 90% counted in one day, and then we can't finish voting over the course of the next 3 days. You know, it takes us one day to count 90% or 95%, and then it takes us 4 days to count the final 5 or 10%. And in those 4 days where we're slowly counting the last 5 or 10%, we are getting just nothing but Biden votes, and it's just enough to close the gap in every swing state.
Just at the end.
Just at the very end, done. Biden by 1.
Sorry, good night.
It couldn't look much worse than that.
Aesthetically, it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
That's what 2020's been.
Yeah, it has.
And I think it's, I mean, it is what it is, but where do you go from here?
Well,
look at this. We've got a third.
Got a third man from
Get
podcast.
in here.
Let's smoke this real quick. I got one for my brother.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Oh, a ciggy?
Siggy, yeah. Do we have a lighter?
Can I get a hit off that?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna take a leak while we do that.
Okay.
Can we pause this thing for a second?
We can pause.
Yeah.
This is post-election
Pause.
talk.
This is
Yeah.
post-election. We're getting deep.
We've been going deep.
All right, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binaries, we'll be back. All right, we're back at it.
So we've been jumping around a little bit, talking about the election,
Pardon me.
talking about political correctness, talking about a number of things in our society, and cool, thanks, man. The place that I wanted to circle it back to is we read that Theodore Dalrymple quote where he has said, "To assent to obvious lies is to assent to evil, and in some small way to become evil oneself." And that is kind of how I feel about accepting what we're being told about the election. Is like, if it doesn't make sense, I have to say that it doesn't make sense. I can't just take this thing hook, line, and sinker, because if it's not true, then that is assenting to evil and becoming evil oneself. And I think we have to hold fast to I'm going to point out what doesn't make sense to me, and maybe you can explain where I'm wrong, but you know, if you can't, I have to keep saying it.
May Odin bless you and the
Exactly.
kind that you come from. It's all of our duty, and we should all, with the glorious power of the internet, we should embrace that duty and work together despite our differences, and through our differences achieve things that are otherwise impossible to achieve, which is really the strength of America, and idealistically kind of the idea of America. Well, no, it takes a break to do some nicotine. Oh, black sheep. Takes a...
Woo!
There we go.
Snuff, man. Haven't had that stuff in a while.
Doing the snuff. Very cultured here.
Haven't had it since before Sober October.
There you go. Feeling good. Okay, so where to go from here?
I don't know. Should we bring Mike into the mix? And
I have a question for you, Noah.
yes.
We're going by our aliases. I'm Brown Bear,
Oh, of
and the other person is Black Sheep. You can
What's
be.
your alias? Something animal and a color.
Red Badger.
Got Red Badger.
Red Badger.
Not to be confused with Red Beaver.
Roger that.
you're red. Okay.
Red Beaver is
Green
quite
Badger.
disappointing. You want the pink beaver?
What was your question though? Can he hear it? Can the mics pick him up?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Should we just set these down on
Go over here.
the
Yeah,
table
he'll-
and they'll probably pick us all up equally?
if you put it on the corner there, it'll
do
probably
you
be
think-
good. But speak in the general direction of it, probably.
Do you think that there can be some good out of this Biden-Harris term?
Yeah, I actually do. The thing that I think is the potential silver lining is, I think if it gets conservatives to give up on Washington and focus on working at the state level instead, I see that as progress.
Do you think that the general populace will be more happy now? Like, will there be a net happiness gain?
Yeah, you mean in terms of just like social strife and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like how many people were just upset for 4 years? Do you think that'll be like alleviated?
It's a good question. It's possible. I don't feel super confident to say one way or the other, but
I have an opinion on this.
yeah, that's good.
Ferguson occurred during Obama's administration.
Yeah.
There is no indication that the cause, in my estimation, for this racial tension will go away with a Biden-Harris administration. In fact, I think it will be utilized and leveraged to try to move along some of their political agendas. I predict that there will be some sort of gun violence in the early part of their term, wherein they're given some sort of authority to enact gun legislation, further gun legislation.
Yeah, I mean that's why I stemmed my AR this summer.
How do you think this Georgia Senate race is gonna play out?
Georgia Senate race?
Yeah.
I haven't been following it too closely.
Well, as far as I know, because there was 2 Senate races, and out of all 4 of the candidates, none of them got 50%, which means an automatic re-election. So in January, there's going to be a re-election, and Chris was more pessimistic than I was. I was thinking that more people were going to realize what that would mean to have a complete democratic, government. And so I think I'm a little more optimistic about it. I think people will realize. And then Perdue, I think, was the Republican candidate. I think he'll get elected, and there's another one. But yeah, those are my thoughts. That would be big. But if the Democrats take the Senate, then they expand the Supreme Court, and then who the fuck knows what happens?
Yeah, I see where you're going now. If Republicans can hold the Senate, it kind of gridlocks anything going too crazy.
Yeah, I think it's
at
great.
least for a couple years.
Yeah, a couple years.
And I think there's probably some good merit to that.
That's best case scenario.
Yeah.
At this point. As far as political unrest goes, it's not going to change anything because it's coming from this racial tension, which is coming from this communist sort of subversion in our culture, and that's coming from China. I think.
CCP? You think so?
Where else is it coming from? You think it's coming from Russia? Could be coming from Russia too.
Some of their shit's homegrown too.
Yeah,
some of it's homegrown.
I was gonna say that.
Black sheep. What's that?
I was gonna say some
Red
of it is
badger.
legitimate beef or perceived beef.
Black sheep has a theory about this.
About what?
Regarding the forces within the American deep state that are perhaps using tactics that they've used abroad, and they're using it locally.
Oh, the color revolution stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I don't know if I can all the way dive into that one right now. I'm still feeling it through. That's when I was talking to you before.
Well, it was compelling to me.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Spark Notes version of it is there's this concept called the color revolution, which describes a number of these revolutions that happened, like in Ukraine and Belarus, and I think some, I can't remember what all exactly they're fall under this category. I know they call the Ukrainian one the Orange Revolution, and I think the Belarus one they call the Velvet Revolution. But the point being is, there were close elections between a leader who was essentially wanting to cooperate with the U.S. and a leader who didn't want to cooperate with the U.S. And the one who didn't want to cooperate with the U.S. won, and there was ensuing civil unrest to the point where eventually that leader got ousted and the pro-U.S. one got in. And there is some belief that U.S. intelligence was involved with, for example, the Ukrainian Orange Revolution, and that kind of playbook by those same people is kind of being used to get Trump out of office, as he is kind of the American version of the guy who won't play ball with the powers that be in the U.S.
Because he won't play ball with China. Or...
You won't play ball with the American deep state, which may be trying to play ball with China.
Okay.
As part of their agenda. But that was so compelling to me because we definitely meddle in other countries, and in every revolution that takes place we have some hand in it, whether it's defending or helping the opposition.
Right.
One or the other, we take a position.
Yeah, we pretty.
There's never an agnostic. We'll just let them figure it out.
Yeah.
That's not the U.S.'s MO.
I think you're pretty much correct about that.
Yeah. Whether it's overt or covert.
Yeah.
And that comes like or I don't know. We were talking about it earlier, but I mean, we find this out decades later every time. So they're doing it, and there's no reason why they wouldn't deploy the same tactics here on a candidate that they don't feel like they can control.
What are the similar tactics that they're employing?
Yeah, it's things like civil unrest. In Ukraine it was stuff like burning police cars and burning police precincts and
sounds familiar.
General rioting and that kind of stuff. There is questioning of the legitimacy of the elected ruler, which you can kind of see as the whole like Russia got Trump elected. Mm-hmm. That was the whole MO in the Orange Revolution, was the Ukrainian leader. I forget the dude's name. I could Google it a second ago. It basically the narrative of the revolutionaries was the books were cooked for this guy by Putin.
Here, Mike, hold that mic up to you. This one, me and Noah can share this one.
Okay.
That's interesting because
turn it the other way.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting because that sounds familiar.
It does sound a little familiar.
Yeah.
Pardon me, Red Badger. I'm still getting used to that.
Red Badger, that's right.
So, I feel like at this point we've hit on a lot of things, and we've implied a lot of things. We've cast judgment and our opinions on a lot of things, but I want to clear some things up. I think there is data to indicate that Biden, one large reason potentially for Biden winning were these votes that were cast with no other vote cast for down ballot. Yeah. Thank you. And that the places where Biden won were conspicuously won after many days of counting.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to touch on some of the other kind of statistical anomalies from the election?
Yeah, let's touch on the statistical anomalies.
Okay, so there is something called a bellwether county. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
No. Bellwether counties are counties that are very close to 50-50. And there's a handful of these counties that very accurately for the last, 64 years have been very accurately predicted the winner of the presidential election. So I'll give you one of them is Valencia, New Mexico. It's like a 50-50 county. And when it goes Democrat, the Democrat wins. And when it goes Republican, the Republican wins. So some of these are just uncanny. Valencia, New Mexico has picked every candidate from 56 to 2016.
Without error.
Without error.
Oh.
Vigo, Indiana, every candidate from 56 to 2016. Westmoreland, Virginia. So one thing to know also, 1960 was considered a realignment year. It was when Nixon kind of changed the constituency of the Republican Party. So there were more errors in 1960. Westmoreland, Virginia, aside from 1960, has picked correctly every year from 56 to 2016. So anyway, there are a bunch of these that have, only one or two misses over the course of 60 years. Mm-hmm. And this year, out of, let's see, how many of these bellwether counties do I have? Let's see. Got Valencia, Vigo, Westmoreland, Ottawa, Juneau, Hidalgo, Wood, Essex, Washington.
Let it be known that the Brown Bear voted for Tulsi Gabbard, not Donald J. Trump.
Alright, so we got a list of 17 of them here, and I'm going to cover up the final one, but you can see how accurately, the green ones are the ones where they accurately predicted the election. You can see how accurate these are.
They are accurate.
Okay. You can see I'm covering up 2016. You can see how accurate these things have been at predicting. Mm-hmm. Of the 17, 14 went for Trump this year.
How many went for him last in 16?
How many went for him in 16?
All of those went. All of them went for him last year.
Damn.
So this year, 14 of them went for Trump, and he lost.
Odd that there would be a little bit of a split, but...
Well, if you look at past years, there have been years where, a handful missed. So we had one of them missed in 2008, one of them missed in 2004, one missed in 92, two missed in 88, three missed in 80. We can see there are years where a few missed.
A few here and there.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
But this one, we had 14 of them go for Trump.
Huge anomaly.
What are these called? Bell County?
Huge.
Bellwether counties?
Yeah.
I have not seen that. That is very suspicious to me. Maricopa County was suspicious to me too.
Yeah.
Sus, as the kids would say.
Did you guys get into its suspiciousness?
No, tell us about it.
Well,
regale us.
We were crunching the numbers 3 days ago, like the day after the election, so 4 or 5 days ago now. There's 2 million people in that county, 2 million voters.
Okay.
2 million voters. There was a 400,000 vote swing this time around. So it was Trump, I think, took it by 100,000, and I think Biden took it by 300,000 this time around, or something like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
But one theory is that there's a demographic change, more Hispanics there that didn't like him, but that's not really consistent with all the other Hispanic the Hispanic counties, or at least the change, because we saw Hispanic vote was way up for Trump. Hispanic women, Hispanic
relative to 2016.
Yeah, relative to 2016 Hispanic men, and so that one is very suspicious to me. Do you guys agree?
I'd have to look through it more, but the way what you're describing does sound surprising.
400,000 vote swing.
Out of 2 million?
2 million.
Yeah, that's a huge swing.
That's what it was. That's what it was 5 days ago.
Yeah.
Votes might have trickled in, but don't get me started on Clark County. like Las Vegas. Some say it's the most corrupt county in the country.
Which doesn't.
With the mafia, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it doesn't sound implausible at all.
But my vote did get counted. I checked. It was taking a while, but it got counted.
Yeah.
I'm a Nevada voter.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think there's some tomfoolery, and it's quite clear, and it's really just, it's ironic how we usher in this era of the deep state with open arms and smiling and breathing a sigh of relief. The brown bear's mother, his own mother, texted him and said, I feel like there's hope again.
When Trump lost?
Correct.
Oh, God.
Did you ask her to specify?
No, I knew exactly what she meant. So I let her have it. The brown bear is kind.
A good son.
But you get what I'm saying? Like, this is bad news for every conceivable notion. Like, Biden has been in politics for 47 years.
Would they call him the Loch Ness Monster of the swamp?
Oh, man. I had a long talk with Tony and another friend of mine on Friday about all this. And, you know, I'm one of those people who I couldn't bring myself to vote for Trump in 2016, even though I liked him challenging the media kind of stuff. I liked that he potentially wanted to bring some troops home. There were things I liked about him, but it's like on net, I didn't feel like I could pull the trigger. And then this time around, it's like I really feel like over the last 4 years, I've seen him try to battle the deep state, and I kind of just believe it now. You know. Anyway, Tony's in the same boat. Didn't vote for him in 2016. We both did in 2020, and you know, we're talking about, like, at some point this is going to come to an end, right? Trump's time in office was not going to be forever, and you know, in my view, there were some good things that he wanted to do. He wasn't going to get them all done. You know, that was never on the table. But one thing he very effectively did was, I think he woke up a lot of Americans, at least a lot of conservative Americans, to the idea that their media is not just biased, it's propaganda.
It's the PR department for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, if not the
CCP.
or the Pentagon.
Right.
You know, that's kind of how I feel like it goes sometimes.
It's all the same thing.
You know,
they're all the same.
The only time that there was 1 week where the media all of a sudden stopped all their attacks on Trump and referred to him as presidential, and really fawned over him for a week. Do you remember?
What week was that?
Kurt, do you remember this?
When he put sanctions on Russia?
No.
When he had COVID? No. When his dad died or something happened?
Brother died, no.
Brother? No.
The Never Trumpers came out and said, I've been a Never Trumper, but this week I'm supporting the president. It was in like the first half of his term.
Shooting. Some sort of shooting?
No.
Hong Kong.
No. Damn it. And it was everybody. It was not just Fox News, who, you know, Hannity's pulling for him all the time, you know, but Hannity's never stopped. But
Kurt calls him Stumpy? Or is that you? No, that's someone else. But you don't like Hannity, though.
I'm the brown bear, first of all.
Oh, sorry, my fault.
But this was MSNBC and CNN and NPR were singing his praises for a week. Do you guys want me to tell you?
Yes.
Did he come out against guns?
No.
I'm just on guns. But
it was when he bombed Syria.
Really?
Bombing Syria got him riled up.
Yeah, remember he destroyed that Air Force base in Syria after there was some kind of chemical weapons thing in Syria, and they said, there was some debate: is it Assad, is it Al Qaeda that was behind it? Our intelligence was saying it was Assad behind it, and Trump bombed an Air Force base in Syria and killed like 12 people. And the media all of a sudden stopped every critical thing they had said about him and sung his praises for 1 week before they went back.
So they're with the Pentagon for sure.
On of the
I think
deep
too-
Yeah.
state,
too-
and you shall reap the rewards.
Is that the Halo sound?
That's just like some creepy chanting because these fuckers are.
Creepy.
They're creepy and they're fucking into this evil shit.
Wait, so the Democrats, they are, contrary to popular belief, or at least contrary to my perceived popular belief, they seem to be warmongers.
Yes.
Are they not?
Chief Warmonger, Admiral Clinton.
It's the kind of what you think of as like the establishment Democrats. I don't think it's necessarily true of like the Bernie Sanders or the AOC types that are kind of like fringe people who get popular press.
Right.
But if you think of like the Clintons,
The
the
Bidens.
Bidens, the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's, the people that have just been there associated with the Democratic
Kamala.
Party forever.
Oh, Chuck Schumer's such a rat.
Yeah, I think those.
Looks like one. He smells like one.
Yeah, the Dianne Feinsteins. I think
Feinstein is too.
they're all about it, man.
Give me war.
Oh, can we get some muscle over here?
I want some war.
That's an interesting take. So okay.
And it's interesting also that it's consistent that the establishment Democrats rig elections. They rig their own DNC elections so clearly and obviously.
Oh yeah, they rigged the fuck out of two in a row.
2 in a row, my guy. Not even close.
Not even debatable.
Bernie was the guy.
Both times.
Wait, so
Both times.
we can I ask another question.
Proceed.
When Tulsi Gabbard came out with her stance as being like, or correct me if I'm wrong, but she wanted to work with Assad, right? She wanted to, or yeah, there was something about that where she wasn't as harsh on him as everyone else wanted her to be. Do you think that was like a big no-no for the Democratic Party?
Correct.
Okay, and that's one of the big reasons that she got right.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what happened to her.
Oh,
Just no votes.
They basically all attacked her for at least one of the debates, and then shortly after they all dropped out and said Biden's the one. Biden is the one, and we shall all support Biden. And a couple of them straggled, but they all fell in line, including Bernie. Probably got a new house out of the deal.
You were talking about the things that you appreciate about Trump's presidency.
Right. So first one is I think not to every American, but to a good chunk of Americans, has exposed that. Let me back up for a second. It was believed by most conservatives prior to Trump that the media was biased.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like all Rush Limbaugh's listeners think that the media has a liberal bias, and they've thought that for 20 years.
Decades.
Yeah, decades, easily, 30 years probably. After Trump, I think a lot of them got like another level deeper, like red pilled on the subject, to think that like it's not just that they have biases, they do have biases, but there's also like kind of an agenda at work. There is a certain component of our corporate media that is better described by the word propaganda than by the word bias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very contrived machine.
Yeah.
Seems to be.
Yeah.
Because bias would imply something different, but the catering and the specific like way that it's contrived is more like propaganda, is what you're saying.
I think so. So that's one, and I think on his way out, he may red pill a good good chunk of the country on another idea.
That's what oh, go ahead.
And so that second idea, he first he got him with the media on his way in. On his way out, he may open the eyes of millions of Americans to the idea that elections do not have good integrity in the U.S.
Yes,
and
I 100% agree.
Bada boom.
I think a lot of the press has been running this mantra. They ran it before 2016, and which makes me think there was probably a little bit of an attempt to rig 2016, but there was less means to do it, maybe.
And they had less expectations.
Yeah.
Or they had greater expectations of Hillary.
I agree. Yeah. But you've heard this mantra if you've watched mainstream media at all. You'll hear this phrase verbatim. They won't modify a single word. There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud.
Yeah.
You'll hear that.
Right.
They won't mix up the order of those words. They won't substitute any different words in there. You will hear it verbatim every time. There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll say in the U.S. on the end. And that mantra is going to be overturned, in my opinion. Whether Trump gets into office or not, there are millions of Americans that are going to come away from this, and they are no longer going to believe that there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud because, Kurt and I were looking at a little numbers thing I put together, but there's a zillion people, there are a zillion internet autists who have done a way more thorough job of me on this to just, put together all these the bellwether counties being another example. Like, it's getting out that this thing doesn't smell right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to contain it. They're not going to contain it. And as his parting act, I think it's pretty clear he's going to change the way people view elections in this country.
Mm-hmm. I was telling Kurt, I think maybe last night or this morning.
Brown bear.
Sorry, I was telling Brown Bear the kind of the same thing, but you got a little more you got a little deeper in it. I was saying the things I appreciate about what Trump did is he exposed the media, for one, when he came in, massively.
Mm-hmm.
The people who were non-political like me, like, I had no idea. I was just like CNN. I was like CNN zombie. Now I'm like, this whole thing is fucking retarded.
It becomes like
It's unwatchable. Yeah, especially and then he exposed the whole deal with China and how fucked up they are. Like, we weren't really talking about China in Obama's years.
To be fair, you're right, and that is a good point. That it used to be in the rhetoric that China was not
In like
not
the 80s,
cool.
maybe.
Oh yeah, in the
Yeah, yeah.
80s and the 90s, but then that lost appeal,
Yeah.
and I think it's because the
They're getting cash.
the DNC is in bed with them,
They're getting
and the
cash.
RNC probably is too.
Maybe.
But the DNC is for sure.
And he exposed
The FBI.
He exposed the FBI. That was another one I forgot to mention.
Uh-oh.
He exposed these pollsters.
He got the Democrats to slob the knob of the FBI.
He sure did, yeah.
Yeah.
The Democrats? The Democrats were the ones standing up for the FBI.
Or they historically anti-intelligence.
You would think, except for now it's exposed that no, they're not.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're anti in a superficial way, maybe.
And I love it on the way out. He tore the system down.
The election system?
Yes, I love it. Because it's like people say, oh, he's hurting the country by doing this, but this stuff was already there. He's just exposing it. So it's you can't be, it's like it's better to know it, so maybe we can work some things out and fix it than just to not know it and act like it's not there.
That's what Black Sheep and I were talking about to start this, is that we're not trying to insinuate that this is the only time that this has ever happened. We're trying to insinuate that there is clear evidence to suggest that it is happening, and also you're going to have someone in the office calls it like he sees it and say, yeah, it's happening. Just saying it's happening. I'll do my part. I'll take it to the courts or whatever, and I'll show that it's happening. But, at the end of the day, that's what I'm going out with is letting y'all know that this is happening, and it's been happening.
I do think this is a bigger scale than if our hunch is correct here that there is that this is a rigged election. I think this is probably the largest scale rigged election there's ever been.
I believe it was.
I mean,
in my
isn't
uneducated opinion, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Isn't it just by definition because it was the largest election by numbers?
Let's say by percentage.
No, what I mean is I don't think you haven't had a superpower like the U.S. with a rigged election. I mean, I guess you have China that has president for life, but the people don't think they're reelecting him.
And the thesis is that even though there has been corruption and rigging to a degree, it hasn't happened that much because when it's establishment versus establishment, it's a no-lose scenario. Whoever ends up coming out on top ends up coming out on top.
Yeah, I don't doubt that there have been elections in the past with fake votes cast in them, but I just think almost for sure, especially the way this whole mail-in vote thing worked, with all these ballots going out, whether people requested them or not, the number of fake ballots that could potentially have been put through in this election, I think just must dwarf anything we've seen before.
It's sickening when I think about it.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah.
It gives you sick feelings. This is like you're really fucking with democracy. Like you were saying, this is it's the most powerful country still, I think. Right? Can we agree on that?
Certainly.
And so much influence, not just, so much influence with many things. And so like, God, that's a really big thing to rig. Like you better.
But can we also
God, what's up?
But can we agree that like the red pill take on this, I think, is that this has been happening to some degree. It's just that the deep state has had such a control that they haven't had to rig it that much.
They haven't had to rig it because the parties have done such a good job of keeping a true independent out of that office.
That's been the party's sole job.
Yeah, they don't let anybody get to the nomination until their loyalty has been secured. I think there's maybe been a case that in a few decades ago that was less true, but at least in recent years, Hillary and Obama and Romney and Bush, they are party people. They were not trying to go against the deep state or anything like that.
Where my party people at? Dick Cheney, head of the deep state.
He was definitely a prominent. If he wasn't the head, he was upper management. Put it that way.
Wait, I have a question. So you think the Republican Party is also anti-outsider?
Yeah, I mean, I think in 2016 there was a real lot of kind of the.
Well, Trump was underestimated, right? And so they thought they didn't have to do as much.
Yeah, I think they're very much. There was a lot of opposition to Trump from within the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
By I think the more powerful people.
A ton. More than ever.
Yeah.
More than ever.
Well, so if there was that much opposition, how did they? If historically they've kept outsiders out successfully, how did he get in successfully? If there was more opposition than ever.
Well, within the party, but the Republican nomination process doesn't work like that. It's based off of voting.
I think.
So a populist candidate can rise.
Right, but it's always based off voting, right?
Yeah, it always is.
So in the past, if they've been successful, even though there's been an outside candidate, how come they haven't?
I think they just weren't ready for Trump, man. He just came in there with some star power that that other anti-establishment Republicans haven't had. I don't think they had Ron Paul's. I'm quite confident they didn't have Ron Paul's loyalty secured either. But he just didn't cause enough of a problem. Ron Paul had kind of like a little cult following.
Yes.
Of which I may or may not have been a member myself. Or you could look at like a Pat Buchanan type, who I think was not really a party person either, but wasn't enough of a threat in the primary election. And then you had Trump come in there, who's a celebrity and a reality TV show personality, and just had this star power energy to him.
Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, that they
with his tartan pants.
The normal kind of like ways that they handle those outsiders didn't work on him.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah. And I think their compromise in the end was, Trump is clearly so much more popular with the Republican base than any of the other candidates are, that I think the gamble they took was they said, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll just roll with this thing. We'll see if he beats Hillary. If he does, we'll just make sure his cabinet is all filled with our people. We'll guide him to do our policies. We'll make him one of us, even if he wasn't already. And that's where you have like the John Boltons and the James Mattises and the people who are really, deep state types working with Trump, trying to guide him in that direction, and he just fired them all.
I had, by the
You're
way,
fired.
I had lunch with Mad Dog Mattis.
Did you?
Yeah.
What were your impressions?
He's a hell of a guy with a slight lisp, and I couldn't get past that. That's a fault of my own to not be able to get past that.
Yeah.
Because he was he's a very nice guy, and he was really entertaining and fun to talk to. But yeah, I couldn't get past the lisp. He would say, listen, you have to read Marcus Aurelius. He's a big Marcus Aurelius guy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That was my impression of him. But yeah, I had lunch with him. Trump fired him? Is that what it was? I thought he like quit or something.
He resigned.
Yeah.
But eventually, point being, Trump would not be guided on foreign policy by him. Or him or John Bolton. Though they were the kind of the two guys that they put around him to say, these guys are going to guide him on foreign affairs. And Trump said, no, I've got my own ideas.
And Trump was very anti-interventionalist, right?
Correct, yeah.
Low taxes. I always tell Kurt this. Every time Kurt describes his ideal candidate, he describes
Brown
Donald
bear.
Trump. I think he has MAGA hats in his room.
I have no MAGA hats.
MAGA socks.
I have MAGA books that
I have one too. To be fair,
been handed to me.
Yeah.
Nice. I think
It's propaganda.
There's a lot of times, I'm not an out Trump supporter. I'm not out of the closet as a Trump. I'm not a publicly supporting guy. I don't have a hat or anything like that. But I just, and it's taken me until the election gets stolen from him to really like come out of the closet on this.
Yeah.
But it's like, even though I couldn't bring myself to vote for him in 2016, even though I can't bring myself to say I support him publicly, I have always secretly kind of been rooting for him.
I will define secretly because I say I root for him pretty openly. Except
Red
when
Badger
except when I'm-
is truly the red badger.
Except
And
if
the
I'm trying
brown
to get in a
bear,
girl's
for
pants.
clarification, is not a Trump supporter, closeted nor otherwise.
You
But
find yourself rooting for him a little bit
I root for the president. I rooted for Obama too.
in the same way.
No, but if
You son of a bitch.
no, but in the election
What about the election?
when there's no president yet, like if it's up for grabs, you root for Biden or for Trump?
Well, in this case, I vote for, or I would root for Trump, even though I would not vote for him.
So we got that much out of you.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
but I'm not his supporter. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but if you were put into that corner,
What?
the corner of having to vote for either Biden or Trump.
I wouldn't vote.
No, I mean having to support one or the other.
Somebody puts a gun to your head and says,
Yeah, quit getting around this.
Okay, then yeah, I would vote
You're
for
dodgy
Trump.
one there.
Jesus. But The truth being that democracy has been a sham for a number of reasons. And one of the biggest reasons is that the deep state has controlled our elections as well as foreign elections for a long time. And we need to stand up against that deep state. We need to stop this, like, colonialization sort of shit that we got going on, and all of this military industrial complex nonsense, prison industrial complex. Got to stop that. Abolish taxes. Abolish the police.
End the war on crime. Did you see what Oregon passed?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
it is in a way, but
I mean,
like,
amazing, not necessarily good, but it amazes me in many ways.
oh, okay, yeah. Speak
But
on
I
that.
mean, some good.
We'll speak on that.
Well, just because it's so new, this is the first time it's been done, right? Wait. Let me
Yeah,
get this
I
straight.
think so.
Drugs are now a civil citation.
Well,
Or you get a ticket pretty much for
but
drugs.
I think you were even allowed to have a certain amount. Like, maybe it's over a certain amount, you get a ticket,
Yeah, over a certain amount. Yeah, and it's proportional to the amount or something like that.
which is pretty cool. I think that's a great idea.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think
But
it could
we'll-
work. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You think it could work?
I think so. I mean, hit people
I
where it
think
hurts the most.
we're all going to agree on this. I don't know how interesting it's going to be to talk
Okay,
about. Do
okay.
you have any
Move on.
different ideas, Noah? Or Black Sheep, pardon me.
About drugs?
About drugs.
No, I think I'm on the same page as you guys.
Yeah. Okay. What about, shall we get into schooling?
Ooh. Wait. I want to hit Noah with this. Can I hit Noah
Black
with
Sheep.
Oh, sorry. Can I hit Noah with that?
God.
I love that talking point.
Black Sheep.
The one about all the different the demographics of the votes. Did you guys talk about that?
Kurt mentioned it.
Okay, that
Brown Bear.
is a beautiful statistic. The one about how Latino women and men
Yeah.
were up proportionally,
Uh-huh.
relatively from 2016. Black women and men, and even white women were up for Trump. The only one that was down was white men.
Yeah. That's
It was
crazy.
down massively.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be interesting to see how this one gets spun to like blame white men.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, well, Trump still won like nearly 50%. What are the white men still doing? They're still fucking up. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, it's interesting because the whole knock on Trump this whole time, it's not the only knock on Trump, but one thing that's been a constant bellwether, bring that vocabulary word in again, is them calling him a racist, Nazi, white supremacist, all this kind of stuff. And that was the original knock on him in 2016. It was 4 years of it, and after 4 years of minorities seeing him as president, they were less persuaded of it.
Yeah.
And it's like you can talk till you're blue in the face about how he's racist, but the revealed preference of minorities is they are less convinced of it than they were.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually not racist. Yeah, he's not. And that's the thing.
I mean, so let me put it in a little bit stronger terms, right? That was kind of the diplomatic way of putting it. Now let me put on the MAGA hat for a second. Trump won more a larger percentage of the minority vote than any Republican candidate had won since 1960. 1960, Richard Nixon was the last Republican candidate to get more than him. 1960, I'll have to look this up to get the exact numbers. But the U.S. was somewhere in the neighborhood of like over 75 or around 80% white in 1960. Now the United States is like 60-something% white.
Mm.
So, and it's a larger population. So in terms of the raw number of minorities that supported Trump,
A shit ton.
it is hands down more minority people that have ever supported a Republican president in the history of the country. So when he said
Ever.
I am the least racist person,
That was true.
it might not be true in the absolute sense, but relative to every other Republican candidate, minorities think so.
Since Abraham
He
Lincoln.
is actually the least racist Republican candidate, and we don't like the Democrats. Boom.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to move on to schooling? I think we agree on this also.
I want to keep talking about the federal.
I have a hard time, just in the last day, I'm having a hard time getting past the election.
I am too, actually.
You know, it's like, I see, if I'm looking through Twitter and I see someone tweeting about anything else, I'm just like flipping right past it. And it's like, I'm just looking for that new information. Oh, you know, all these like statistical anomalies around his election stuff. I just can't get enough of that shit.
Wait, can you tell me what the fuck went on in Philadelphia? Do you know anything about that?
Philly.
Something I'm less informed on. I've seen some great data on Milwaukee.
Is Milwaukee fucked?
Yeah, so Milwaukee, you probably know, Wisconsin ended up being closer than Pennsylvania.
Right, yeah. I saw that.
So Milwaukee, there's this information on the counting of votes in Milwaukee on the first day versus on subsequent days. And we all kind of know what happened, right? Trump had a big lead in Wisconsin. There was a bunch of uncounted votes in Milwaukee. Those were broke for Biden. That closed the gap. Biden ended up edging him out by 20K in Wisconsin. What is interesting is there have been some people who have done analyses on what basically they have these voting districts in Milwaukee that are called wards, right? So think like neighborhood. So there's like the Fremont ward, the Green Lake ward, the Ballard ward. That's kind of the idea behind it. And there are like 478 wards in Milwaukee. And somebody did an analysis on the ward by ward voting patterns before on the first day versus on subsequent days. And I've got the chart of this here if you guys want to take a look at it. So the red ones are Trump and the blue ones are Biden.
Anyway, increases in candidates' votes.
So the x-axis is how many votes he had received at the end of the first day.
Mm-hmm.
The vertical axis is how many he received after. So I'll show Kurt next. The x-axis is how many votes the candidate had received the day of the election, and then the y-axis is how many they received after the election.
It's an overwhelming floor of red with a sea of blue above it.
So here's what's interesting about this is if you look at the red dots, there's like a perfect correlation there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it goes
So
right through.
They've run a regression. It's like a 0.86 correlation. It's like it's like a perfect relationship.
Yeah.
So see how those red dots almost form a perfectly flat line there?
Well, let's say 0.7 is like enough to be like that's a relationship.
Yeah. It's something like 0.5. You can say there's a relationship, and then the higher you get, the more like clear it becomes. So anyway, what it's saying is the votes that Trump received after election day were in proportion to the votes that he received on election day. So if he received 100 votes in one ward, which is a lower number, then he would expect to get a lower then he got a lower number in that ward in subsequent days. Whereas when he got 500 votes on election night, he continued to get more votes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
With Biden, you can see that there is very little, if any, correlation.
Yeah. No.
It doesn't form the shape of a line at all.
As Big Bear put it, or Brown Bear, there's a sea of blue.
Sea of blue. Yeah.
A sea of blue.
It just looks like a cloud. It seems like there's no relationship at all. And what the official explanation there was that we've kind of gotten handed down to us by the media is, oh, well, you know, it's more mail-in votes later, and mail-in votes tend to favor Biden. Okay, if that were the case, what we would be seeing is a steeper line for the blue. That if it was just a matter of the ones that counted later are more heavily towards Biden, that would just mean more of them were on this axis and less were on this axis, but we'd still see a correlation.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's no correlation doesn't fit very well with the idea that it's just more mail-in ballots later. What also doesn't fit well with that is the idea that Trump is so well correlated here.
Mm.
You know, the idea that one candidate is perfectly correlated with the first day and the other candidate is uncorrelated with the first day is extremely difficult to explain. If neither was correlated or both was correlated, you could say it's just about the distribution of the batches we're counting later are different than the batches we're counting before. With respect to Trump, they're exactly the same. With respect to Biden, they're totally different. So this, a lot of people have looked at this, see that and say, that's not consistent with, later votes heavily favoring Biden. What that's consistent with is ballot stuffing. That's consistent with correlation breaking down only for one candidate.
Smells a little like a ballot
that was
stuff.
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, yeah.
And was there not some tomfoolery in Michigan also? Have you guys been seeing anything about that?
There have been a few things. There was that vote counting SIFT software. Did you hear about that?
Mm.
So basically, they count all these ballots up by hand or going through a scanner. They get the totals and then they submit the totals to some like vote counting headquarters kind of thing, right? Somehow in the process of they got all the votes counted.
I forgot to upload. Or no, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. They got these votes counted. The how many are Trump, how many for Biden. They finish voting. They submit them to the central thing. Somewhere between them finishing the count and the count getting recorded at the centralized headquarters, 6,000 votes for Trump flipped to Biden. And the person who was like running that voting counting center caught it and like went public and said, "This is messed up. We got to correct this," and got it corrected. So the margin of victory for Biden in Michigan was like 120,000 votes, and this was 12,000. So it wasn't enough to swing the state. And as of now, the official story is this was a software issue and not anything intentional.
But the red pillars aren't taking that one.
Yeah, it makes you wonder because that 6,000 votes flipping from one candidate to the other is a 12,000 point swing. What's the margin of victory in Georgia?
When I saw it, I don't know what the final numbers were. When I saw it, it was like definitely less than 10,000.
Yeah, I saw like 2,000. I haven't looked at that recently, but
yeah.
Long story short, that one little catch by that one lady in Michigan is enough to swing a key state right now. So
and like that might have been happening. Like it might have been happening to a bunch of places in Michigan. Right?
Oh yeah, that software is used in I think the 40 something counties in Michigan was using that same software.
Made by the CCP.
The software, if we really want to go, all right, taking off the MAGA hat and jumping down the rabbit hole for a minute, that particular piece of software, somebody tweeted this out recently. There is a write-up about it as, one sec here.
I'm excited about this.
Black sheep is.
Is this gonna confirm my bias, or is this gonna have to make me think?
I'm a bias confirmer or something.
Okay.
And this is one of those times.
Beautiful.
KVH, the truth. Confirming your biases.
Okay.
One red pill at a time.
I was really hoping Nevada would go Trump by one vote.
Wow. The recount.
Okay.
The recount would have fucked you.
That's true. Maybe on the recount it would have been one vote.
Wow. That would have been powerful.
There is a write-up on the website of the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, advocating for the use of this vote counting software in developing nations.
Is there anything more sinister?
Oh my God.
What was it called? The Clinton
Global Initiative.
How could anyone get behind that? Clinton Global Initiative.
It does sound.
It sounds terrible.
It sounds fucking evil.
I don't think there's a single thing more evil than that.
Yeah. Okay. So
when Freddy Krueger goes to hell, that's where he goes.
Dominion is the name of the software. I'll just read you the first sentence off their website. In 2014, Dominion Voting committed to providing emergency and post-conflict democracies with access to voting technology through its philanthropic support of the Delian Project, as many emerging democracies suffer from post-electoral violence due to the delay in the publishing of election results. In other words, we're going to bring peace through the world by charitably providing them with vote counting software. That's where this 6,000 votes thing came from.
It doesn't seem like there's any sort of conflict there.
No, not at all. Wait, okay, so we know there was some fishy business going on in Wisconsin, or we have strong indication, as well as Michigan. What about have you heard anything from Georgia?
Here, do you want to hold this?
Oh, sure. You're looking sleepy.
Yeah, but
How should this volume be?
I'm staying. It's good. It's good right
That's good there. Okay. Georgia.
Hold
What
it.
about Georgia?
Here, I have another question too, but after think about Georgia for a second.
Here's one of the things about Georgia. So Kurt and I talked about this in pretty good depth about how I don't know how much of this conversation you heard about Biden overperforming Senate Democrats in states where both Senate Democrats and Biden were on the ticket, and that from what we can see from the data, it looks like he is getting his support largely from that overperformance is not coming from Republicans and it's not coming from independents. It's largely coming from people who have not filled out the congressional option on the ballot at all.
Just the president.
Just they're clicking president only and submitting it.
Yeah. That sounds fishy. But put
Yeah.
the dots together for me. In what ways? I mean,
Well, if you were going to be rigging a particular race and wanting to do it quickly, there's two things. One, if you're going to rig an election, you want to put your finger on the scale as little as possible. So the more races you rig, the more obvious it becomes. And secondly, if you're trying to put together a bunch of fake ballots and you got to fill them all out during the 4-hour pause in the middle of the night on November 3rd,
you want to maximize efficiency.
it's faster not to fill out every referendum and whatnot on the ballot.
It took me 3 days.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Now getting to Georgia, the funny business there. Let me pull up this spreadsheet real quick because this was one of the examples of a state where that's not the one. A state where. Hey, Kurt, how do I find that Google Docs? Oh, here we go. I got it. A state where Biden had overperformed relative to his Senate performance. And it looked like a lot of votes had come through that couldn't be explained by capturing Trump votes, essentially. So, Biden, in the state of Georgia, received 100,000 more votes than the Democratic representative for Senate.
Wait, say that again.
In Georgia, so imagine you're filling out the ballot. Most people are going to say the Democrat president and the Democrat senator, or the Republican
in the House.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if we look at the Senate race, the Georgia senator won. The Georgia Republican senator won by 90,000 votes. Trump then was 1,000 shy of the Georgia senator, so he underperformed by 1,000. Biden outperformed the Democratic senator by almost 100,000 votes. And it's not like he can steal those from Trump, right? Trump underperformed by 825 votes.
So, like you were saying, empty ballots with just the...
Yeah.
or not empty, but just people selecting the president.
Yeah, so it looked like there was also, in the Senate race, 52,000 cast for either third party or independent candidates, and an additional 46,000, at least 46,000 were cast that had no Senate choice filled out. So what it looks like for Biden, 46 and 52 would be 98. Yeah, so this is, what it looks like Biden acquired was essentially all the independents plus another 46,000 in Georgia.
it sounds like nonsense.
It does, and we've run this. I can show you the full thing later if you want, but we've run this comparison of every state that had a Senate race, and what we have demonstrated is that when Trump outperforms the Republican candidate, his votes are tending to come from the independents, and when Biden outperforms it, it's tending to come from empty ballots, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we've got 50,000, let's see, is that right? Yeah, so we've got 52,000 independents. The idea that we have 52,000 independents and they're all breaking for Biden is hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah. Wait, what's the percentage of them that are going for Biden?
200. It's all of them plus another 50,000.
Oh my god. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Wait, so do you think there's a possibility that that there were many people who were so disgusted with Trump and they're usually non-voters, that they just wanted to select the president and just be done with it?
Well, that's what needs to be
investigated
here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that there are just a zillion people like this. I have a hard time imagining people are gonna, think about the trouble of voting, right? Especially these voting by mail specifically. You got to have this thing, you got to fill it out, you got to seal it back up, you got to throw it in the mail delivery by a certain day.
That's a good point.
The idea that you're going to go through that rigmarole and only vote one item off a ballot.
Especially because some of the most interesting stuff is local, like all the little drug laws and stuff.
Exactly. That's the stuff that actually affects you the most.
And Michael, we talked about that to begin with, and I kind of had that position. I was like, it makes sense. Somebody would just want to fill out president, but then I couldn't think of a single person that I actually knew who would vote, who would do that.
Yeah, no one.
Yeah. So
I can actually think of people that wouldn't just leave the president blank,
right,
and do the opposite.
Right. Yeah. So that's the Georgia thing. I'm not saying there could be more still to come, but
that looks actually the most suspicious.
Yeah.
Dude, you gotta send me this. Send me this spreadsheet.
Yeah,
This breaks everything down.
Yeah, all. This is just. I put this together today. I sent the email to Kurt. I can forward it to you as well.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
And then Philadelphia. What was that thing about the people not being allowed to observe? Did that have validity?
I heard about that. I haven't dove deep on that particular.
You're just the numbers guy.
I'm doing more of the numbers, I guess. Yeah.
We know bad things happen in Philadelphia.
It's one of the most corrupt places.
Everyone agrees they can't believe how corrupt it still is.
Trump was playing golf today. He's like, I'm just gonna wait. Do you think he's gonna accept, or formally accept?
So he has until December 14th.
Okay.
That's when the actual electors go to confirm the state results or whatever.
Gotcha.
In 2000, Al Gore did not concede until, so they did a recount in Florida. He wanted another one. They got to December 12th and it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to approve another recount.
Yeah.
Basically the electors have to go now.
No.
And that's what brought that election to a close. And he conceded once the Supreme Court ruled that.
So that's the deadline, December of something?
December 14th, I think.
Okay.
So it's more than a month. I think what you're likely to get is kind of legal battles for the next month. If they're not all done, which I think it's likely they're not going to all be done by December, 13th or whatever, I think it will probably go up to the Supreme Court, and they'll either make a decision of saying, similar to 2000, we just have to go with what we got,
Mm-hmm.
or and this is the the kind of crazy scenario, what they could potentially say is, I'm not a constitutional expert. But my understanding is if there's a problem with our ability to hold a legit election, that the incumbent president simply stays in office. That it's hypothetically possible for the Supreme Court to rule, and we'll see if this plans out. It's possible for them to rule. There is so much evidence of voter fraud that we don't think we can use the current results. We are going to take as long as it takes to vet all of these results, and we will not inaugurate a new president until we have done so. So maybe it won't be January, maybe it'll be February, March, or April.
That sounds like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
If we want full transparency.
Yeah. So it's possible that that's what we're looking at.
So let's say like this lawsuit, whatever, say in the one in Wisconsin where it's like very close, or even in Georgia. Let's say like it goes through. What would it look like for it to go through and for them to make people recount and stuff? Would they have to prove voter fraud, or like what happens there?
It's probably going to be things like, so what they're going to be looking to get is like an audit of votes that they have reason to believe is suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably saw that not Antonin Scalia. What's the Supreme Court justice that didn't die?
What, new one?
No.
Roberts.
No, not Roberts.
Gorsuch?
No, Gorsuch is one of the new guys.
New guys?
I can't remember. One of the conservative Supreme Court justices issued this order to Philadelphia to segregate all, even though they're allowed to keep counting, to segregate all ballots received after 8 p.m. on November 3rd.
So we have that. So we have that data.
It's unclear if they're following that order or not, but that order has been issued to them by the U.S. Supreme Court that we want you to keep separate the votes you received after 8 p.m. on election night.
So if they did not do that, would that be grounds to recount? So say like they actually mixed all the votes up, the ones before and the ones after.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be like enough for them to be like, well, see, I have no idea.
You want to get the real nightmare scenario here?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say they do it as requested, and what you could get then. I'll just play the scenario out first. You get an audit of those votes. Either the audit reveals those votes have good integrity, or it's revealed they have significant lack of integrity, in which case they could be thrown out.
I know where you're going with this.
So yeah, you probably have guessed. If they refuse to do it and it's unable to, if they're unable to demonstrate integrity in the election, what it goes to next is the representatives in that state no longer have to follow the election results, the so-called unfaithful electors.
Oh, okay. No, I was thinking of something else. Wait, really?
Correct. Yes. So there is this provision where we have the electoral colleges. They're the electors that are sent by I believe it's by the state Congress to vote in the electoral college, and what they can do instead is, if they believe that the election has been essentially a bunch of shenanigans, they can send people who will not vote according to that. Basically, if they believe the Democrats have cheated, they can vote Republican. They can vote for Trump, regardless of what the electoral outcome was.
And they can send people. Who are these people that they would be sending?
I don't exactly know who they are. They're just like they're called electors, and they're chosen by the state Congress. And from what I understand, the Congress of Pennsylvania is a majority Republican Congress. And
interesting.
Yeah, it basically it's believed that if this, there's a question of whether they would do this, because we're talking serious civil unrest if this goes through.
Yeah.
So there's some question whether this is actually going to pass. But constitutionally, what they have the ability to do is just talk to the electors beforehand, choose ones that are going to say, I'm voting for Trump instead of Biden, and on the grounds that that the election was not faithful, they can be a quote unquote faithless elector, and this is a constitutional provision that was essentially anticipated
Yeah.
in the creation of the Electoral College.
Our forefathers had beautiful forethought.
In many ways, greater men than occupy the country today.
Yes. Many men. My nightmare scenario was that somehow the decision about somehow this decision goes to the Supreme Court and it goes 4-4 up until Amy Coney Barrett has to choose, and she chooses to invalidate the election results somehow. I didn't really work out those specifics, but I was just imagining how bad it would be if Amy Coney Barrett, this new judge that they didn't want in,
Yeah.
somehow fucked him twice.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is it? Kennedy. He was a conservative appointment, but he usually sides liberal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of them. I think it's Kennedy. I can't remember for sure, but even I think in many ways more entertaining than this. How familiar are you with the appointment of Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court?
Not that familiar. I just know he is one.
So, are you familiar with the Clarence Thomas appointment? It was essentially Brett Kavanaugh in the 1980s.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I saw there was a video on YouTube making the rounds.
Yeah. So it was this woman named Anita Hill that suggested that he had been inappropriate with her, and essentially there was this show trial very similar to what happened with Brett Kavanaugh. In many ways, Kavanaugh was just recreating Clarence Thomas all over again, and the primary in front of the Senate, similar to what happened with Kavanaugh, and the primary senator who just grilled and humiliated and disrespected Clarence Thomas through that entire process.
Let me guess.
Yep.
JB.
Correct.
No way.
And so there are these epically long things of Clarence Thomas just like shaking his head and Joe Biden just going off on him
He did call him predators.
Yeah. And at the end of the thing, Clarence Thomas described it as a modern day lynching. Was Clarence Thomas's own description of what the show trial had been like.
Was it disgusting in your opinion? Or was it just kind of like, a little bit harsh?
I didn't watch it all the way through. People that I trust seem to think that it was a lot of show.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, the reason I brought that up was because if it does just so happen to be the case that it goes 5-4 and it is ruled by the Supreme Court that something pertaining to this election, the most senior justice of the majority is the one that writes the opinion, and a possible scenario here is that Clarence Thomas is going to be writing the majority opinion that revokes the White House from Joe Biden.
That would be such poetic justice.
Yeah, it's almost too good to be in a movie.
Oh my god.
And I don't want to say that's going to happen or anything, but it's not impossible.
Well, Dinesh D'Souza is making this movie right now.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about that. Have you watched any of his movies?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
I kind of want to.
Yeah, did you see the one about fucking Obama sucking that guy's dick?
No.
The interview? There's some gay dude from Chicago said he hooked up with Obama and did coke with him.
I believe the coke. Well, that was in his book, wasn't it? I thought he admitted to doing. Maybe not.
I think he did. Yeah.
But, was that you spreading the Michael Obama thing?
We were talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy's fucking passing out.
I know.
This fucking brown bear is like sleeping, man.
Brown bears hibernating.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to you guys, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I just love to believe that this was rigged because all of my senses tell me it was.
Right.
I have no real data, of course. Well, I mean, you actually provided some.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I have nothing real. But all my senses say that, like, Kamala Harris, I see in her eyes, she's an evil lady.
Yeah.
And she will not stop at, she will go to every end to get what she wants.
Yeah.
And this is not beyond the pale.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, I don't know. I don't think he seems. I don't see that same evil in him, but he might be there too.
He just doesn't seem like mentally fit enough to mastermind anything.
He's not. Yeah. Exactly. he can't. No, one way or another.
Yeah.
But he's proven that he will be establishment.
Yes, he will.
Oh yeah, he's no Apple Cart Turner by any means.
Joe Biden. Oh damn, he shouldn't have done that. It's gonna come back to Biden. He shouldn't have done that to old Clarence.
Yeah, it would be pretty amazing if it did come back to him.
But 99% probability. There's a 99% probability that this is just gonna be. It's just gonna be Biden Harris. Nothing will happen.
You know, there's a decent possibility that this will be Biden Harris, and the stuff that we're looking at right now, essentially takes on a status of like 9/11 conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be 90-minute long YouTube document, or probably not. YouTube's gonna take them down. It'll be 90-minute long BitChute documentaries.
BitChute, is that the new one? I gotta get on there.
BitChute is like a video service that is not taking anything down, essentially.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so there's going to be like these,
I love the internet.
90-minute long documentaries where they're breaking all this stuff down way better than I am here. And there's just going to be this kind of underground thing of there was election fraud in 2020.
They're trying to suppress it. It's
Yeah.
it's like whack 'em, right? You hit one, and another one's gonna come up. It's like people are gonna find out. It's gonna come out. Information is coming out everywhere. The internet is just across the world. People are connecting. Like, you can't control it anymore. I don't know how they did this time, but
Yeah, I mean, dude, Facebook and all the social Twitter, these guys, they are suppressing the shit out of stuff.
yeah, I saw Twitter. There was a lot of blocked, or not blocked tweets, but censored tweets, I guess.
Oh, man.
And people. in general.
Twitter deleted like 5 of Trump's tweets on November 4th.
Yeah.
What?
They deleted the
yeah.
president. They deleted the president's tweets.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Fucking crazy, man. I mean, fuck, if that's what we were talking about before was, if it was a rigged election, how much worse could it possibly look?
Wait, what do you mean? Like, how much?
So if you were imagining like what a rigged election in the United States would look like, how much worse could it look like than what we're seeing right now?
Right, I guess maybe like black vans and people in masks with like big boxes coming in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
For like votes.
Yeah.
But that's
the thing about the vote by mail; they don't have to do it.
yeah. So it's like
It's all just sitting in USPS drop boxes all over the place.
it was a perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
These people are sick, and it makes you think. Okay, well maybe they fabricated this opportunity. So maybe this is a stretch, but maybe the CCP did let this get out in conjunction with the Democratic Party, because they knew they were going to be able to take advantage of this virus and the fact that people don't want to go out.
Yeah, we're getting deeper there. That's a whole nother level deeper.
That's another level, and
But the virus definitely enabled the vote by mail.
we know the virus enabled the vote by mail. We know the vote by mail enabled tomfoolery, at the least, voter fraud at the most, and we know where the virus came from. Do we know that the Democrats have connections with the CCP?
Yeah, Hunter Biden's.
He seems to.
Here's the crazy thing, though. Have you
Yeah.
seen Hunter Biden laptop stuff?
Not in depth. Just
Okay.
like kind of like what's like little clips on YouTube, I guess.
Okay,
What-
so he was basically going around the world making these deals with foreign countries, and getting these appointments to boards of these companies, and getting paid millions of dollars
Yeah.
in industries that he knew nothing about and had no experiences in, that did business in a language he didn't even speak.
That's the extent of my knowledge. I knew
Yeah.
that part. Yeah.
And so that included China.
It did.
It
Okay.
did include China.
Did include China.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's definitely got some connections there. I
Yeah.
saw something about how in one of the emails they talked about passing up some money to the big man,
Right, yeah.
and they think that's Joe,
They do, yeah.
but Hunter denied that and said that was like a different person in the company.
Right.
Right.
His business partner, Tony Bobolinsky, says it's Biden.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I saw that guy.
Yeah.
Damn. Do we think the Clintons have connections with the CCP?
Clinton seemed to have connections everywhere.
They have connections everywhere. I think Chris has connections with the CCP. Every time we get him drunk, he raves about how great China is. I'm not kidding you.
I kind of want to hear that now.
Yeah, every time we get drunk, we sit out here, and I'm like, I don't really want to listen to it, but yeah, it's funny.
That is funny.
Makes me wonder. And he had, I think, an Asian foreign exchange student at his house. I don't know. It's all there.
What if that was happening all along, right under our noses?
I think it's happening across the United States with many individuals. I think there's got to be tons of actors in this, right? Who
Like
just
spies.
maybe spies, maybe just
Yeah.
people who are like working with them and getting some cash to do whatever. Like they have,
You're probably right.
right? Like
People at Google and shit.
people at Google. Like, have you seen how like all the property gets bought in like some of these bigger cities, like just straight cash from China,
Yeah.
just
yeah.
straight up cash.
Yeah.
Like fucking these, like I think the Bank of America building's owned by China.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The same thing in like London, all over the world, like Paris. They're just fucking buying up tons of real estate, which is like, I mean, it's their right. It's not like in itself that's not suspicious, but
Yeah.
it makes me think that
It doesn't help that they run the country the way they do.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't feel quite as good as if it's like a rich Swiss guy.
Yeah.
You rest
Yeah,
a little
exactly,
easier. Yeah.
But anyway, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we've already lost Brown Bear, so maybe we'll just put a fork in it for this evening.
Well, this is gonna help me sleep at night. Now, because all my biases are confirmed.
That's
So,
right.
all right. I think I'm gonna eat some steak.
Cool. I wonder if I can figure out how to pause this thing.
Is this GarageBand?
I don't know what else. Let's see. Yes, it is. All right, and I'm gonna hit